Here's a little story written by an AI I call Harry Potter and the Cake. The warm breeze wafted gently from Hermione's backside. Harry was at a loss. The two seemed to want to keep the arrangement a secret. "What should I do? We can't keep this going on forever. Can't I go back to the ministry?" Hermione said. Harry thought about this. "Okay," he said. "I have an idea. I think we should go down to the burrow, get a bite to eat, and tell our family what we're doing." "To answer your question, yes, you can, but I would only go if I thought that you wanted to." "Of course I want to," said Harry. He did know the truth, but Harry Potter also knew that no one would take the witch hunting more seriously if he said so. Potter opened his mouth to speak, but Dean, who'd always been good at making up answers to strangers, put a finger to his lips and motioned for a quick step behind the tree. "Let's get some food in us. Then we can get back to work." The truffle dogs, lined up on the front lawn of a cozy brick house, shivered. The smell of the meal they were being served filled the air. Harry Potter leaned over and breathed deeply. "That smells delicious. What is it?" "Sage roasted in olive oil," her mother explained. "It goes well with stew." "Olive oil and sage? The butter must be coming," Harry observed. They took their seats at the dining room table where the meal was being set. "Is it at least a little different from the meal last night?" Hermione asked, pointing at the bowl filled with chicken stew, carrots, and peas. "You bet it is," Mrs. Weasley said with a wink. "When I went into my shop this morning and turned on the oven, it made a noise." "What sort of noise?" asked Harry Potter. That was the last thing she remembered. She had spent the evening playing cards and drinking with Draco Malfoy's brother, Lewis. Harry had graciously agreed to stay at the house in case his wife turned up drunk again, but as far as she could remember, she had been very sober all evening. "What's going on?" she asked again. All her vision came into focus. She was on her back, her eyes fixed on the left hand. It was no longer a mess of wet grass and branches. It was covered in olfactory grease. "Would you like to stand up now, Mrs. Weasley?" asked Harry. For the first time since entering the room, he had looked at her, really looked at her. Her face was flushed and her eyes were sparkling. A small smile played on her lips, as if she were the one who was looking at the sunset, not the landscape around her. As they left the room, there was much nodding from Ron, Hermione, and Ginny, who were stunned by the power of his charm. "You need to rest as well," said Hermione, "but I want you up at the breakfast table. Hurry back." Harry looked down at his pants. His face was soaked, and he felt the chocolate begin to dry and stick to his chest. "Oh yeah, I forgot." He fished his wand out of his pocket and pointed it under the arm of his jacket. A bright blue light appeared, and Harry could feel a stretch and a pull. A thin sleeve had appeared and was slowly, reluctantly, sliding up his arm. "No, they can just be impressed that they can see the arm now." He paused, thinking, I'm wondering if they can't tell that it's like half the length of a sparrow." Harry took Mrs. Weasley's hand. As always, his eyes met hers, and she felt that familiar prickle of magic. "For my parents," she said. She knew it was a lousy thing to say, but she could not help it. "If there is anyone who deserves a happy homecoming, it is them." They waited together until the noises of the Weasleys' party died down. Wormtail and Sirius went to go hunt for Bellatrix, and an equally useless-looking Sirius joined them. Remus and Lily, and the two friends from the Gryffindor table, Ginny and Dean, found Harry Potter and Mrs. Weasley kissing. Dean was disgusted at the sight, while Ginny told Harry that she was happy for him. Harry and Ginny begin dating. 3 weeks after the Triwizard Tournament, Ginny received an owl from the Sorting Hat. She was put into Slytherin. Harry felt guilty not only for kissing Ginny, but also for insulting her father. To try and smooth things over, he invited Ginny to the Quidditch match against Hufflepuff. At the match, Harry read his essay to the entire crowd, so that everyone would know why he soiled his pants. Bella was so excited for Harry Potter to read his essay to the crowd, she even made him a special sign that said, "Freaking out!" She wrote the sign on her right hand, which is lefty. She's pretty sweet. Harry Potter summoned all his courage and massaged his chest with his wand. "You want to hear another joke?" he asked warily. "Of course." Harry was suddenly on his feet, puffing from his efforts. He knew he would get the impression he was patronizing her if he wasn't careful. But it was a joke he had told himself he'd share with anyone. "Here goes." Harry closed his eyes, willing himself to breathe deeply. "A unicorn had 3 friends, a little brother, a big brother, and a baby sister. The baby sister enjoys being with her big brothers, but the baby brother at—" Harry Potter suddenly stopped speaking. Mrs. Weasley danced with the leotard. "I thought the speech was about babies or something. Harry Potter said he would go, but said he had to tell me a secret. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't say anything. They say that it's one thing for an ordinary wizard to learn things by going to school. It's quite another to learn things by going to Hogwarts. It's more than just classes, and it's more than just books, and even more than—" Hermione stopped. "But you were saying about Hermione," Harry said. Hermione pointed at Mrs. Weasley. "I think you should stay with her." "Oh," Mrs. Weasley looked deflated. "Okay, but Hermione, keep an eye on that boy. And get rid of him as soon as he's tucked in." He looked guilty and shot her a quick glance, but said nothing. Hermione watched Ron and Remus exchange a couple of brief, uncomfortable glances. "Not again," Ron muttered. "Don't you dare get into a fight with the girl." Harry Potter yelled and threw flowers through the air at Mrs. Weasley nicely. He was just glad to have something to do, other than being stuck on the Quidditch team that day. The same could be said about Draco. After he, Draco, and Hermione had spent the entire time after dinner in their pajamas and on the couch discussing just about everything, Draco finally ended the long, late-night conversation by requesting that Harry come over the following evening. He would never admit it out loud, but Harry was rather impressed that he had to follow through on his promise. Harry Potter and Draco were the best of friends, and Draco smelled like mint and chocolate kisses. Harry had made sure to talk Draco into sitting at their table in the library when they were in 4th year, when all the talking had started up again after the summer break. But Harry had never known that Draco liked chocolate, even though he had smelt Draco all over him after a particularly bad lunch. "I need it!" Draco put the chocolate in Harry's hand and ran off the train. He ignored him when Harry tried to tug it from him. "It's not even my birthday." "Every day is birthday day," said Harry Potter. He turned and hugged Mrs. Weasley. "I still don't understand the joke," said Ginny. "Of course not. You're a 1st year," said Ginny, half embarrassed. "I'm not as good a wizard as you are." "Don't flatter yourself," said Harry. "I was just about as good as a wizard when I started 1st year." Harry reached in his pocket and handed Ginny the last bit of his birthday cake, still in the box. "We had a little cake on our last birthday," said Harry. "It's going to be horrible if we're not careful," said Ginny. Harry Potter looked into Ginny's eyes, holding the birthday cake between them. "The cake is a birthday present." Ginny smiled. The cake was very pretty and the icing was just right. It was almost as if she had just made it herself. She knew that didn't sound like her own mother, but then again this was not normal for her. This was something special about it. The cake, the chocolate frosting on top of it, everything seemed so perfect. So perfect, in fact, that it was a bit odd that Harry, having never actually seen the actual cake before, didn't recognize it. He was staring at it with wonder. "It smells like your mother," said Harry Potter, wiggling his lips. "I know what you mean, but it's too big for her. I could have gotten her something smaller. This will be our secret, Harry said to Ginny. Harry, Ginny said, the cake is your secret. It is the most magical cake ever made. Harry just grinned and shook his head. She giggled and then said, Oh, Harry. And that is Harry Potter and the Cake. Like, subscribe, follow, upvote for more. Not just more of Harry Potter, but more of all sorts of stuff.